What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video, and this one you're going to want to share if you play because I'm covering Gravekeepers. Now, Gravekeepers is a bit of a weird archetype at its first conception. It doesn't really have too much of a main theme. I mean, there's the theme of like keeping zombies in the graveyard that, goes along with the theme of Pharaonic Guardian, which is the set it released in. And its field spell does indeed do that. It prevents monsters from coming back from the graveyard through things like Monster Reborn, Call of the Haunted, Premature Burial, etc. But the monsters themselves don't really have that much of sort of a cohesive game plan. Like, you got Spy to cheat out your monsters from deck. And Guard is also a big monster with a lot of defense as well, so that can pair with Spy, I guess. But the others don't really, gel well together. I mean, you've got Spear Soldier to inflict piercing, Assailant to potentially switch a monster's position. These are just sort of like generic good stuff effects. The other Gravekeepers that I haven't included here include things like Curse, which deals some burn damage, Cannon Holder, which can tribute your monsters to deal burn damage. So there is that burning aspect of the deck that, I tried to sort of get into a cohesive game plan. Couldn't quite figure it out for this video, so not sure if I'm going to be covering it in my Yata format coverage. But there's that burn aspect potentially. You've got Gravekeeper's Chief that can bring back a monster from graveyard, but it's not really that good in this sort of deck. So I just put together some of the better Gravekeeper's monsters in this deck, just sort of centralizing around this Gravekeeper's Spy at 3 copies, which is, this card's probably the best of the Gravekeepers here. It's very annoying for your opponent to deal with in a lot of situations, and if you got Necrovelia buffing it by 500 defense, it gets even worse. So that's how I think you want to play this deck. Just have the 3 Gravekeepers Spy. Have like a toolbox of some other Gravekeepers that you can bring out if you really want to. I do have 2 guards here instead of just 1 because guard you kind of do want to draw. Because we're not playing Book of Moon. That was a potential card that you could play in this deck. You reset your Spies, get out more Gravekeepers, reset your guards, bounce more monsters back to your opponent's hand. But I just didn't have the deck space, really. And there are definitely some cuts that you can make to this deck, which I'll talk about as I go through the deck profile. But yeah, I don't really think Book is really that worth it in this deck. Although it does have some synergy with Guard, Spy, and also it can be used with Spear Soldier to inflict some extra piercing damage. So these are the monsters that I ended up going with. The other monsters in the deck are just sort of generic good stuff cards. So we've got Sangan and Witch. Sangan can search out all of your Gravekeepers, Witch can search out, Assailant and Spear Soldier, which are your aggressive Gravekeepers, and they can also search out the other non-Gravekeepers parts of the deck. So we've got a Sinister Serpent here, a Spirit Reaper, and a Yata Loop. Now, the reason why we're playing Yata and Spirit Reaper is because this deck does have a hand control aspect to it. We're playing 3 copies of Royal Tribute, which is a spell that says if you control Necrovelia, both players discard any monsters in their hand. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this card. I think it's a bit bricky if you don't have Necrovelia, and even if you do have Necrovelia, it's not really the best thing in the world. But I figured since I'm trying out the Gravekeepers deck, I'm just going to go all in on this strat, playing 3 Royal Tribute, and the low monster count that we've got does help out with that quite a bit, and we're a lot less likely to have cards in hand going to grave off of this Royal Tribute. And if you Royal Tribute your opponent, you can potentially get in for a Yata Lock or a Spirit Reaper to just rip a remaining spell out of their hand or something. So I do think that these are some good cards to include here. You can potentially swap them out for some of the other cards in the side deck here, which I'll talk about later. But I do think that they're pretty decent out-of-engine inclusions. For the spells, we've got a Change of Heart, a Confiscation, a Darkhold, a Delinquent Duo, Graceful Charity, Mirage of Nightmare, triple MST to pair with the Mirage of Nightmare and also hit things like Imperial Order and the like. We've got double Necrovelia and 1 Terraforming. You could potentially play 3 Necrovelia or 3 Necrovelia and 1 Terraforming, or any number of those sorts of things. I went for the double Necrovelia and 1 Terraforming because I feel like this is probably the best ratio for me. You want the Terraforming in there to thin out your deck a little bit, which is good. And, you can't really be playing like 2 copies of Terraforming and 1 Necrovelia. And I think 3 Necrovelia is a little bit bricky. So I'm good with 2 Necrovelia and 1 Terraforming, but maybe if you want to make sure you get Necrovelia more often, you could go with 3 Necrovelia, 1 Terraforming instead, or just 3 Necrovelia. We've also got a Pot of Greed, Raigeki, Royal Tributes, as I mentioned, a Snatch Steal here, a Terraforming, a Forceless Sentry, an Imperial Order, 1 Mirror Force, 1 Ring, Rite of Spirit, which is honestly one of the main reasons to play this deck. This is a trap card that says target one Gravekeeper's monster in your graveyard, special summon that target. This card's activation and effect are unaffected by Necro Valley. And that gives your deck a lot of recursivity. And that allows you to play less Gravekeepers, right? Like, we're only playing one Spear Soldier and one Assailant, because Right can hopefully float into either of those if you get them out with the Spy. Now, there are some ways to get around this in the format, like Bottomless Trap Hole does exist, but no one's really playing Bottomless Trap Hole, and I don't really think they should, because it's not really the best card. But maybe that becomes like side deck tech against this deck in the future, and then you've got something to worry about. But for now, I think that this strategy is pretty good. We've also got Triple Torrential Tribute because, Rite of Spirit can bring back your Gravekeepers pretty easily, so you're not really too afraid of wiping the board. For the side deck, we've got some, more Gravekeepers here in case we want to bring them in. So we've got double Assailant and double Spear Soldier. If we're facing decks that are a bit more defensive, then we can bring in Spear Soldier. If we're facing decks that bring out more Tribute Monsters, we can bring in additional Assailants, as this can get through most Tribute Monsters when Necro Valley is on field. We've also got the Exiled Force, Lily, Jinzo, and Gemini Elf as just sort of generic good stuff cards to potentially bring in. And we've also got a double copy of King Tiger Wanghu here for more recruiter-focused strategies. We've also got a Harpy's Feather Duster to deal with decks that have a lot more back row. We're not playing the Heavy in the side because Heavy hits your own Necro Valleys and stuff, so it's not really the best for this deck, I don't think. We've also got Double Nobleman and a Ceasefire forward decks that are more flip-focused. And lastly, we've got a Painful Choice. Honestly, this should probably be cut from the side deck. I just had it in here just sort of to experiment with it if I ever wanted to bring it in. I think Painful is a bit rough in this deck. There aren't really many good sets of 5 to send oftentimes. And yeah, your deck is just sort of focusing on the long grind because you can just sit on a Spy for quite a while. So I don't really think that Painful is really that necessary here as opposed to other decks, but it is a very, very good card. So that's why we have included it. I mean, you have a Fusion deck here, but it's honestly not really that useful. And yeah, that's going to be the deck. I hope that I can make Marik proud. I think that's who played this deck in the anime, because it related to the whole gravekeeping aspect of his family and stuff. But yeah, I mean, if I had Marik's Millennium Rod, I would tell you all to share if you play, and honestly, share if you don't play, because I think that this video has some really, really good gameplay. And I'm really proud of the duels that I'm going to feature on this video today. So let's dive into the games and see how this deck goes. So first up, we've got a game against PJ Darkness, and they're a frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. They also designed the channel logo, so if you like that, be sure to check out their other stuff. But yeah, we are going to be going second. We did lose the die roll there, which is quite unfortunate. But this hand is pretty good. I mean, any hand with Spy in it is a good hand, in my opinion, because Spy is just so annoying for your opponent to deal with. And even though they bring out a Gemini Elf, that will not really work with the Spy that much. We're going to just set a Spy, set a Torrential, and set an Imperial Order, and then pass back to our opponent. You might be wondering why we're not activating the Necro Valley. The reason is we don't want to give our opponent a hint that we're actually on Necro Valley, because just setting a monster, that could be anything. That could be a tomato, that could be, a Sangan, a witch, whatever. So we don't want to give our opponent information that it might indeed be a Spy. So we keep the Necro Valley in hand just to hide that fact. And then we can activate next turn once we have an actual beater on field. So they're going to hit in with the Elf here, and we're going to bring out an Assailant, because next turn we can get a bit aggressive with the Assailant. They're going to set 2 and pass back to us, and we draw an MST, which is not bad. We're going to fire a Necro Valley here, and that's fine by them. So our monsters will gain attack. I could, manually change the attack and defense here. I'm just going to put a counter on. It's easier that way. It takes less time. And we're going to attack in with Assailant. Now, we could just keep the Elf in attack for this, but I actually decided to use Assailant's effect here. And there are a couple reasons for this. One, this will force out an MST right away. I mean, if they've got MST, then that's going to be pretty bad for us. But so that's not really the best use of this, but I do think it's important to just see this. And if they do have the MST, I'm pretty sure Assailant's effect will still go through here and switch Elf to defense. So still will be able to get over it. Also, if they've got Blast with Chains, like if this is a gear-free deck, then this will play around Blast with Chain, which can be activated to buff up the Gemini Elf over the Assailant. So we'll hit into the Elf, get rid of that. And then we're just going to set 1, pass back to our opponent. We could have actually switched the Spy to attack and hit in here as well, but we're playing around Mirror Force, which I think is the right thing to do. So I'm just going to bring out a Tomato, and that's fine by us. They're going to hit into our assailant. That's also fine by us. And they're going to bring out a Witch of the Black Forest. That's also fine. So this might be... I mean, I don't actually know what exactly their play is here, but I mean, Witch is annoying, so that's something. We're going to hit in to the Witch with the Assailant, and we're not going to use the effect this time, as this time if they do have something to deal with Necro Valley, the Witch can't actually kill the Assailant. So I feel like it's fine just getting in damage here. Opponent's going to add a Jinzo, which is a little bit worrying, but they've got to actually have a way to get that out on field, and with Necro Valley on field, they can't actually do things like, you know, Reborn or Call of the Haunted, etc. So I feel pretty good about that. We're going to fire a Delinquent Duo here, trying to hit the Jinzo or whatever else they may have. If they do actually manage to get Jinzo on the field, we do have Raigeki, so that's nice. Managed to hit a Yatagarasu and a Morphing Jar here. I think those are pretty good hits, honestly. Our opponent's going to draw, and they're going to try and fire a Monster Reborn, but that won't be able to go through. They're going to fire an MST instead on the Necro Valley. I think I actually make a major misplay here. I think I should have just fired Imperial Order. Just to stop the Mystical Space Siphon from popping the Necro Valley. Yes, this would actually shut off Necro Valley, which would be annoying. But we can just let the order lapse next turn and get back that boost from Necro Valley. In addition, this will keep things like Royal Tribute online, and we really do want to keep that sort of thing online here. But I decide to save the order for a more high-impact spell, something like Raigeki or Dark Hole, etc. But yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. They're going to fire Reborn. We have to use the order on that, and yeah, it's just kind of rough because if we hadn't if we had used it on the Necro Valley, then yeah, this wouldn't have actually happened because they wouldn't have been able to use the Reborn with Order on field, and then we would have let Order lapse, and then they wouldn't be able to use Reborn with Necro Valley on field. So I think we majorly messed up there, and our opponent's going to bring out that Jinzo, get a search off the Witch as well, and they're going to search out Parshath, which is a very interesting card here. It can't actually get over Spy, though, so that's pretty good. They're going to hit over the Assailant, pass back to us, and we draw Royal Tribute off the top. So if we had actually just ordered on the MST, we would have had a really good turn here, I think. So as is, we've got to just attack in directly with the Spear Soldier, pass back to our opponent. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We draw a Change of Heart. We could potentially go for the Change of Heart here instead of leaving the order up. If it's a monster like, you know, Mystic Tomato or something like that, then we'd be able to get in for a lot of damage, but that wouldn't be a lethal amount of damage. So I feel like we can probably save the Change of Heart, just keep IO on field to, like, sort of protect against board wipes. And yeah, we're going to hit into that Tomato. They're going to bring out a Sangan. They're going to pass back to us, or we're going to pass back to them. They're going to tribute out a Parshath here, and they're going to get a search off that. And we could potentially fire a Torrential here, but I think I want to save the Torrential for when they actually have a way to deal with the Spy. But, you know, if I had kept Necro Valley on field, then none of this would really be a problem, because we would have been able to Royal Tribute that Parshath out of hand, and yeah, it would have been a lot better for us here. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw a Witch, which is pretty nice, but, you know, if we actually want to commit that to field, we will be giving them a draw, which is unfortunate. We're just going to pass back to them. They are going to think about this. We are losing a lot of life points, which is very worrying. We are going to let the Imperial Order lapse here, so that way we can potentially go for a Necro Valley thing with Royal Tribute. We're going to Change of Heart their Air Knight Parshath. Now, I was actually considering another line here. I was considering Change of Hearting their set, flipping it up and then TTing, and then bringing out Witch and attacking in, and then Royal Tributing their hand away. I think that wouldn't be a bad play. But it would be a bit all in, and then we wouldn't have sort of a reactive way to defend ourselves on their turn. So I think that this is fine. We also do get a draw in here with the Parshath. They take 4, we draw, and Spy is really good here. We're going to go for Terraforming. We're going to grab a Necro Valley here. We're going to set the Spy, set the MST, fire the Necro Valley here, and then go for Royal Tribute. So we both discard all the monsters in our hand, and then I do believe that we reveal the hands. Like, let me know in the comments below if that is incorrect, but I do believe that's how it works. So we know they've got Painful, Change of Heart, and MST here. I think ultimately that's fine. They're going to fire an MST in the end phase as well. They hit MST, but we can't actually activate this. The turn is set because that's how the rules now work, and they go for a Painful choice here. Knowing 2 of the other cards in their hand, I think that we can probably use this Painful to our advantage and give them something that is potentially not that bad for us. So they send 5 good ones here, and we're going to give them the Premature Burial. Now, they've got the MST for our Necro Valley, but we've got the MST for their Premat. So I feel okay about giving them that, and I feel like it's the least disastrous of the options here. So they're going to send their other cards to grave. They're going to MST our Necro Valley, which is a bit unfortunate. They're going to Premat. We've got MST for that Premat, and they're just going to change of heart our set, hoping that it's something good. Luckily for us, it is not for them. It's just another spy, and you know, they don't have any Gravekeepers in deck, so they'll pass back that spy to us. Now we do draw Spirit Reaper. No real reason to commit it to board because, you know, Parshath can just hit into it and put us on a clock. Also, their Raigeki is gone. The only way they have to clear both of our monsters is Dark Hole, and if they do that, they're clearing their own Parshath as well. So I feel pretty fine about the situation that they're in. They're going to go for coffee, hit that Spirit Reaper out of our hand. Again, I think that's fine, as it won't really do anything here. And they're just going to pass back to us. We draw Rite of Spirit, which is very good. Now, if they do have a board clear, we do have the option to bring back a Gravekeepers from grave, and we're just going to pass back to them. We could just win through deck out at this point, honestly. There aren't really too many ways for them to actually kill us here. We're going to set this guard, though, because this actually does give us win condition next turn, potentially. They're going to set another pass back to us. We draw Snatch Steal, so that actually will potentially be the end of the game as long as they don't have Mirror Force. And we don't need to use our guard right now. We're going to go for Snatch Steal on their Parshath, and that will indeed be the end of the game. It looks like they did have TT, so that would have been bad for us if we like flipped up the guard. But again, we've got Rite of Spirit and Torrential of our own, so it probably wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. But yeah, that just shows how this deck can sort of grind out a victory. Again, I think we probably could have won a lot quicker if we had used the Imperial Order on the MST. But you know, that's how these things go sometimes. It was my first time playing with the deck, so I'm not really as familiar with doing that sort of thing. I will say that as I play these games in the video, I do get a lot better with the deck. But luckily, we were able to still win that one because Spy is just a really annoying card to deal with. There are a variety of cards in this format that do deal with it. Things like Exiled Force, you know, Tribute Monsters when Necro Valley isn't on the field, you know, Raigeki, Dark Hole, etc. But it can just be really annoying if your opponent's sitting on a spy and you don't have a way to deal with it, as was the case in that game there. So we're gonna go into game 2. I think what I do is I side out the Spirit Reaper because that's really bad into Parshath, and I bring in an Assailant because Assailant can clear things like Parshath and Jinzo. And if they're playing Parshath, they might be on more of a tribute focused strategy. So I feel like Assailant is probably a good choice here. But since we did win, they will be going first here. And they're going to bring out a Witch, just pass back to us. That is fine by us. This is a really good hand here. We're going to set the Spy, set a Mirror Force, pass back to them. The reason I do this is I don't want to play into something like Harpies, and they could be on more spell and trap removal, given that they do know we're on a deck that plays Necro Valley and really does rely on it. So I don't want to commit too much into a back row here. And they're just going to set 2 and pass. So that means we're safer from heavy here, I guess. We're going to flip up this Spy, and we're going to bring out a Spear Soldier from deck. That gets Spear Soldier in rotation for Rite of Spirit, so that's pretty good. We've also got Spy in rotation for Rite of Spirit as well. We're going to attack in with the Spear Soldier, or Spear Holder. Spear Soldier? Spear Soldier. I was thinking Cannon Holder. They're going to attack in, we're going to attack with Spy as well, and then we've got Forceful Sentry to potentially send back whatever they searched. So we do get to see their hand here, and that's a pretty good hand, in all honesty. That is a bit worrying. Fiber Jar can reset the board for them, which is really bad for us. Dark Hole can clear, you know, both of our monsters here, but we got Right to make it a little bit better. Injection Fairy Lily can get in a lot of damage, but we do have Mirror Force and Ring if we choose to set it to deal with that. And yeah, I think honestly the thing... So Sangan could be annoying to get them more searches, which we might not want. I don't know. It's a bit tricky. Yeah, we're going to send back the Sangan. I think it probably is the right pick because everything else we can sort of deal with. We don't really care too much if their Fiber Jar is, you know, if they set Fiber Jar and then they reset the game, because first of all, if we draw Necro Valley, that does stop Fiber Jar from actually going through. But also, you know, as long as we've got the damage advantage, then we're doing pretty good under Fiber Jar. So I feel fine with that. Mystic Tomato, we can deal with Mirror Force or Ring. And yeah, I feel like this is honestly probably best to take Sangan. So that's what we are going to do here, and we're going to leave them Tomato, Jar, Lily, and Hole. We're going to set this Mystical Space Typhoon, pass back to them. I guess the reason I do this is because I figure that Mirror Force kind of clears their main threats anyways, so we don't really need to commit anything else to the back row. They've got Comfy, though, which is going to be really annoying for us. They're going to pitch the Exiled Force we have in hand. That would have been another way to deal with the Fiber Jar, so kind of unfortunate. They do have the Dark Hole for our board here. They're going to bring out a Mystic Tomato, and they're going to try hitting in. We do have the Mirror Force for that, so we will be able to clear that tomato. And they're going to pass back to us. We draw a Torrential, so we keep drawing really good traps. We're just going to set a right and a TT, pass back to our opponent. And they're going to set one and pass back to us. That is fine by us. We're going to MST their back row. They're going to MST our right. We're going to chain right. And then we're going to chain to the right and MST to hit their last back row. It was just a ring. We're going to bring out this Spear Soldier here. And we're not actually, we could potentially fire TT here and pop the board and get rid of the Fiber Jar and stuff. They'd be left with a Lily in hand, and we've got Ring for the Lily. But I don't really feel like there's any reason to risk that. We can just hit in with Spear Soldier, deal 1,000 if it is the jar, and then just reset the deck, because we haven't normal summoned this turn, so I feel like we're in a pretty decent position with this. We're just going to set the Ring just in case it's like a Morphing Jar that they drew off the top, but looks like it is not. It's just a Fiber Jar, so everything will get reset here. And I feel pretty good about this. So, I mean, it really does depend on what we draw with our next hand. I mean, if we draw something terrible, then that will obviously be pretty bad. But I feel pretty good. Like, we basically reset the game, and at this point they're at 4,400 life points, which is about half, and we're at full health. So I feel pretty good about this. And drawing a Spy is just, oh, so good. We're going to set the Spy, set the MST, pass back to them. We don't set the right here as we don't have a Gravekeeper in grave yet, and we really want to have a Gravekeeper in grave once we set right, so that way we can chain it to spell and trap removal. Our opponent is going to go for a Delinquent Duo, which is a bit unfortunate here. They're going to hit the right, which is quite bad, and they're also going to, I mean, they don't hit the same, but we're going to discard Sandgame. I feel like it's probably better just to summon an Exiled Force, flip up Spy, bring out 2 monsters here, and get in for a lot of damage. I feel like that could potentially be a way to win. They're going to set 2 back row, though, so a bit unfortunate for us here. But, I mean, yeah, this could potentially be a lethal push here. We're going to flip up the Spy, and we're going to bring out a Spear Soldier. And we could potentially summon the Exiled Force, pop their set, but I actually choose not to do that, as that plays a bit too much into Torrential for my liking. And I do just want to have other options here in case they do have Torrential or Mirror Force or what have you. So we're going to hit in to their Witch. That's going to stretch out a Yata, which is very scary for us. We're going to attack in with the Spy here. And if we had actually gone for the Exiled Force play, I don't think they had Torrential. Yeah, they didn't have Torrential here, so that actually would have been lethal damage, because we would have been able to get in for more here, and that would have won us the game. So kind of unfortunate, but I feel like we're in a really, really good position here. They do have Yata, which is rough, but I feel like they've got to, do a lot here to actually get Yata online in a way that doesn't just, lose them the game. Because we do have Exiled Force, which can beat in for 1,000. We have the read that they might not have Torrential, or else they probably would have Torrentialed there, given that they had a Witch set. So I feel like it probably would have been best for them to Torrential at that point. But yeah, they've got Dark Hole set. They're going to bring out this Yata. They're going to hit in for 200 here. We won't be able to draw next turn. They're going to set another pass back to us. We are just going to MST their new set in the end phase here. It was an IO. That wouldn't have actually mattered too much, so I just got to really hope that their other set is not a TT. We bring out Exiled Force, and it is indeed not a TT. It's a call, which is shut off by Necro Valley. So that will indeed be the end of the game here. Now, if I was really, really worried about TT, I could have just set the Exiled Force, and that would have prevented them from getting in the Yata Loop next turn, unless they had proactive removal, which, I mean, let's actually see if they had that. It looks like they didn't, but they could have potentially drawn it. So I think it was probably the right play just to get in with Exiled Force here, and that indeed won us the game. So I think this was a really commanding showing for Gravekeepers, and I mean, the deck did a lot better than I thought that game, and I thought those games were really, really good. Like, I felt like this was really, really a controlling deck. And yeah, just awesome to see that. So we actually did have another game with Gravekeepers. I wanted to see if the trend would continue and this deck would continue to dominate. So let's just dive into that and see how that game goes. Okay, we've got a game against Soul65, who is a frequent guest on the channel as well. Always a pleasure to have them on, just like with PJ. And we are indeed going to win the die roll there, so we will indeed be going first, which is obviously very nice with this deck. Ah, we're so close to a Royal Tribute open, but unfortunately we don't quite have it. We do have Necro Valley though. We're going to open with the T-set pass again. You know, we don't necessarily want to reveal that we're on Necro Valley, so yeah, we're just going to pass back to them. Nothing can really get over Spy, so I feel pretty good about this. They're going to think a bit and just set a bunch of their own pass back to us, and I feel pretty good about that. We're going to flip up the Spy. That will be able to bring us out a Spear Soldier here, and that will potentially, be able to deal damage to them. We're going to fire this Necro Valley here and hit over their set. It is a Sandgan, so they will get a Surge off that, which is quite unfortunate here. And it looks like they're going to search out a Witch. That's could be really annoying for us if they manage to get into something that can hit over our monsters here, but I feel pretty good about this. Opponent's just going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw Pot of Greed, which is really good. We're going to fire that. Draw 2 here. Ring is really good. Yeah, we get a lot of good options here. So we're going to attack in to their set with the Spear Soldier. It's a Spy, so it looks like that they're on Spies as well here. This might be a mirror match even, which is kind of funny. But other decks have been playing like a Spy package as well in recent days with the Yata, so I do think that this could just be a typical, good stuff deck, but the Spies do benefit from Necro Valley indeed. So we'll take 500 from that, switch our Spy to defense, set a Witch, and set a TT, pass back to our opponent. This way, we can TT the board, get a search off Witch, and feel pretty good about that. So our opponent's going to tribute out a Jinzo, though, and that will be able to stop our TT here. They're going to go for a Pot of Greed as well. Draw 2, they're going to hit over the guard here. We're going to take 400 from that. And they're just going to pass back to us. We draw an MST, which is pretty decent. We're just going to set this guard, set the MST, pass back to them. I figure we can bounce the Jinzo back with the guard next turn. And if they do tribute over the Spy for the Jinzo again, we do have Snatch Steal to take the Jinzo, which honestly wouldn't be the worst thing to do. So I feel pretty good about this. Our opponent's going to think about this and hit into our set. It's the guards. We'll be able to bounce back that Jinzo there. Main 2, they're just going to pass back to us, and that is fine by us. We're going to think about this for a bit because I do think we might indeed have lethal here. We've got triple MST to deal with their entire back row. So if we do clear their entire back row, then Snatch Steal their monster. That's 17, 28, 45, and then 6. That will indeed be lethal damage here. So we are indeed just going to go for the triple MST on the back row. Unfortunately, they do set a Book of Moon here, which will prevent us from doing this play, as Snatch Steal can't take a face-down monster. So that's a bit unfortunate. We are still going to go for the triple, MST, because I figure that we can still do a play where we flip up Witch, TT the board away, and then get a search, summon out a monster, hit in for a lot of damage. So I feel like that's a bit too good to pass up. And we're actually just going to do that now. We don't necessarily want to fire this third TT into their unknown back row in case it is an MST of their own. And we're just going to grab Yata here. Try and go for the Yata lock. We're going to MST that last back row. It's a Call of the Haunted, which is not useful under Necro Valley. We're just going to hit in with Yata. And the reason I go for this is we've got Ring of Destruction and Snatch Steal, honestly. So that's a couple ways to deal with if they do have a couple monsters in hand to bring out. Unfortunately, Witch will enable them to, float into something else. So it's a bit unfortunate for us. But if we snatch it and they don't have a way to deal with this, then I feel pretty fine about this. We draw Royal Tribute, which is really good. We're going to rent this Yata, and we're going to Snatch Steal the Witch. That will go through. We'll attack in for 1,300. Unfortunately, they do have Mirror Force here, so that will clear the board that we set up, and they will be able to get a search off this Witch here. And they're going to search out a Yata Garasu here. Now, we could potentially go for Royal Tribute here, especially if they are threatening the Yata lock, which is very, very scary for us. But I choose not to do it at this point because we have access to a Spy in hand, and a Spy is really good. Even if they set up the Yata lock for next turn, I mean, we've got Ring to stop Yata if we really want to, but even if they do set it up, we do have Spy, which can float into another monster, and just be really annoying for our opponent to get through. So I feel like we're fine just holding off for a turn and just allowing them to do what they want to do here. So they're going to fire an MST on the Necro Valley. Man, that's really unfortunate, as now our Royal Tribute is turned off. So that's a bit rough. They're going to search out a variety of other cards here. Mirage is a bit interesting because they're sending 2 MST and they've already used up a third one. So honestly, I think I might give them Mirage because it's, first of all, they get a lot of cards in hand. Second of all, they don't really have many ways to turn this off outside of Imperial Order exactly. And I mean, if they get Imperial Order, then that's pretty bad for us. But I feel like given that they've got a lot of hands and they need Imperial Order exactly to do this, then I feel like I'm fine giving them Mirage here. We've also got Royal Tribute to balance it out a bit, potentially. They're going to do Reborn for a Witch, and that will ultimately be fine here. But on summon, we are just going to ring that Witch, as we don't want them to bring out a Jinzo, as Jinzo can clear the Spy, which would be really annoying for us. So we're actually going to ring the Witch. I know that this is really awkward, because now they get a search with the Witch, which is really rough. But they're going to search out a Sinister Serpent, and that'll be fine by us. They're going to bring out this Yata, and we don't have the ring anymore to stop that. But again, we do have this Gravekeeper Spy, which should potentially keep us safe. They're going to fire this Mirage, and that's fine by us because it's not going to do anything for them. We're just going to set a Spy, pass back to them, and they are going to set one, pass back to us. We draw Graceful Charity, which is really good here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to think about this for a bit. And then we're going to flip up the Spy now. This will deck thin a bit. We're going to bring out the Assailant that we've got. And then we're going to go for this Graceful Charity. This is a really tough choice here. Yeah, this is a really tough choice. Because TT and Imperial Order are both really good. But we do know about Jinzo in hand. Which, you know, if they do bring out Jinzo next turn, like if that set is a tomato, because they haven't gone through any tomatoes yet. Or if it's like a third Spy that just blocks our board. Then Torrential Tribute and Imperial Order are basically useless into that. So I think I do want to keep the Sangan here, actually. But it's a really tough choice here. So we're going to do a major think here. And yeah, we're just going to send the TT and the IO. And really unfortunate, but it looks like they've got a Magician of Faith, which is really annoying. They'll be able to get back that Monster Reborn and go for the Witch into Jinzo combo yet again. We're going to set the Sangan to potentially get a search here. They're going to change of heart our Sangan. That's perfectly fine by us because it's just a Sangan. They're going to go for Reborn on the Witch here. And they're going to tribute that off for a Jinzo. So they'll be able to get the Witch Search, which is, of course, quite unfortunate. They're going to grab a Reaper, which is really annoying for us to deal with. They're going to hit over our Assailant here, dealing us 900. And then they're going to pass back to us. So we get to draw again. We draw Necro Valley, which is actually really good because that prevents them from being able to get over the Spy with the Jinzo. So what I think I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to fire the Necro Valley first, go for Royal Tribute, because this will snipe potentially some really bad cards out of their hand. And we actually hit their entire hand here. Wow, that's very interesting. This Serpent will, of course, come back. But honestly, I'm really happy to get that Yata out of the hand, as Yata is really annoying here. So, knowing that we hit their entire hand, I'm willing to get a little bit more aggressive here. And I'm willing to actually go for a play that may be really risky, but I do think it probably is worth it. So we are going to flip up the Sangan, attack into the Jinzo here. We take 14, and that makes us dead to something like, you know, Raigeki. Like a Raigeki off the top would kill us here. But the reason I went for this play is I figured Raigeki off the top would probably kill us either way. But then again, actually, it probably, it's tough to say because if we had kept the Sangan set and they had drawn Raigeki the board, then attacked him for 2400, we'd be able to search out the guard after that and then potentially commit the guard to board. But I mean, I don't know. It's really tough to say. I want to get them on a very quick clock here, and I feel like guard is the best way to do that. That's really the only thing that does out the board here is Raigeki. So, they're going to draw. As long as it's not Raigeki, I'm feeling pretty fine. They're going to set one, pass back to us. I mean, change of heart will do it. So yeah, we're going to flip up this guard, bounce the Jinzo, and then just change of heart their set. So, that will indeed be the end of the game there. And yeah, I thought that was a really good game. I think maybe it was a bit messy in some places. Maybe I shouldn't have ringed the Witch, but I was really afraid of Jinzo coming down there. Maybe I should have also, you know, not crashed the Sangan, but I really did want to get them on the clock. And yeah, but I think overall that game was a really good showing for the deck and really, really intense. I thought that was a really, really good match. And honestly, all the games that I've shown off with Gravekeepers so far, they've been really fun. I mean, really, really cool. And I think it's interesting because the deck doesn't seem like it's that good on the surface. And honestly, it does have some major flaws. I'm not disputing that. But it has been doing pretty well here. They're going to go for Mirage drawing 2. And we're just going to fire a pot. Unfortunately, they've got an IO for that. We're going to bring out a Yata to try and bait out some removal or something. And that will indeed bait the removal. So they activate TT. We set a Comfy and a Mirror Force here. Pass back to them. And let's see what they do here. They are going to pay the 700 to keep the IO up. So that's pretty good. They don't have to discard off Mirage. And we're going to bring out a Witch here, just try and hit in for 11. That will indeed go through. We're going to pass back to them, and they're going to think about this a bit. They're going to pay the 7 again, summon out a Cannon Soldier. That's a little bit worrying, and they're going to hit into the Witch here. We'll take 3 from that. That's ultimately fine. We get to search out an exiled force because we do have a Gravekeeper's Assailant in hand to clear the Cannon Soldier already. So I figure it's probably best to search out something that we can't search off of Spy. So they're going to pass back to us. We draw Darkle, which is very nice. We're going to bring out a Gravekeeper's Assailant here, hit in to the Cannon Soldier, and deal 100. We'll pass back to them, and they are going to actually let the IO lapse this turn. So that will be fine there. They're going to change of heart the Assailant and tribute it off for a Hades. That's a bit worrying, especially because Hades can deal with Spy, which is annoying. We do have Exiled Force to deal with that, though, and Darkle can also deal with it. They're going to set a couple more, pass back to us, and they will draw 2 off this Mirage. Now, I actually did let I could have Mirror Forced the Hades, but I chose to wait for the Mirror Force to be more valuable. So maybe that was a mistake on my part, but I think it's probably fine. We're going to Coffee just to see what they've got in hand. And that's a really good hand there. Wow. It's a bit interesting. I think I actually want to take the Raigeki because we don't want them to Raigeki a board set up with like Spy and some other stuff here. So yeah, I'm going to take the Raigeki. And yeah, we can potentially clear the Hades with Darkle if we so choose, given that we know their hand now. And they can't actually revive Hades. So yeah, I feel like it's probably the best to take Geki. We're going to go for a Graceful here. Oh, okay. We get a bit rewarded for that. We draw into Necro Valley, which will keep the Spy alive facing down that Hades there. So, this is a bit interesting. I will just pitch a Necro Valley and an Exiled Force. They already know about the Exiled. We've got Darkhold, which is probably better than Exiled. And yeah, we can go for Terraforming for the deck thinning potential here. We grab a Necro Valley. We're going to fire that Necro Valley, set the Spy here, and pass back to them. The reason I do this is they might have an MST set, but they'll have to like MST their own Mirage if they want to actually get full value off that. And yeah, if they do MST our Necro Valley, we do have Mirror Force to prevent the Hades from hitting over our Spy. So I feel like this is ultimately a pretty good situation for us. They're going to think about this, and they are just going to MST their own Mirage, which I think probably is the right play. Although it does put them in a bit of an awkward spot here. So they're going to think about this for quite a bit. I'm going to go for a Painful just to try and get something else good to hand. They're going to send a Nobleman, a Forceful, a Comfy, a Serpent. And I mean, that's the card they're getting. They're getting the Serpent. Whenever a Serpent gets sent, I'm giving a Serpent. I don't really like the Serpent play that much in most cases. But yeah, they're just getting Serpent because you're just wasting 4 other cards in the deck. And those were actually some good cards. Well, I mean, the hand rips are probably not really that useful right now. But, you know, I feel like probably the Serpent, I'm not the biggest fan of it. But anyways, they're going to hit in to our set there. Hades will not actually get its effect off because it doesn't destroy the Spy by battle. And yeah, we're going to bring out an Assailant because that will be able to deal with the Hades. They're going to take 50 from that. They're going to set 1, and they're going to fire a Metamorphosis. That is a very interesting tech here. It looks like they're going to bring out a Thousand Eyes Restrict. So that makes sense why they went for Painful for the Sinister, because Thousand Eyes Restrict will be able to deal with a monster on our board immediately. Unfortunately for them, they need to have an out to the Thousand Eyes Restrict. And I mean, I don't know. I feel like we're fine just letting the board be as is. We could out it ourselves, but we don't really feel a need to right now. We're going to go for Forceful just in case they do have an out to the Restrict. It looks like they've got Metamorphosis, which will be an out to it because they can just meta their own Thousand Eyes Restrict. Bring out another one, suck up the Spy. So I think I actually want to send back the meta. And that is indeed what I do here. So that'll get sent back to deck. And yeah, we're just going to pass back to them. They're going to grab a Sinister Serpent here. And they're going to just pass back to us. We draw an MST, so we could potentially MST their Assailant equip here, but there's no real reason to do that. They are going to summon an Exiled and pop our Spy. Okay, that's fine by us. They're going to hit in for 15. We could potentially Mirror Force here. That might be the move. But honestly, I think I'm fine just MSTing their Assailant. We could have also taken the 15, but that puts us dead to a Lily that we do know they have in hand. So I feel like it's probably better just to MST their equip. And they're going to pass back to us. We draw a TT. I mean, we're just going to probably set that. Oh, we're going... I don't know how I feel about this dark hole. I feel like we could have just waited. Yeah, I don't like the dark hole play here. Yeah, I really don't like that play. I don't know why we did it here. Yeah, yeah, that's really bad on my part. Yeah, so I think I should not have done that. I should have just left the field as is until I actually drew a monster. But I guess I went for it. I don't know why. But they're gonna bring out a Lily, and that's fine by us because we get the Mirror Force to deal with that. So we will stop the Lily there, and yeah, they'll pass back to us. We draw a guard, which is pretty good. We're just going to set that guard. We could have summoned it and attacked in, but I feel fine setting it and just using it to bounce a monster back to our opponent's hand. They're just going to set one, go for a meta here, and that is fine by us. And they're going to bring out a Thousand Eyes. We could potentially TT this, but I want to save TT for once they can actually, mount an offensive pressure here. We've got Royal Tribute, so that's pretty decent. We're going to be able to discard a lot of their hand, and we see the last card is Ring. So Ring will be able to deal with the Thousand Eyes. But ultimately, I think that's fine. They're going to bring out a Yata. We could potentially TT this, but they can't actually attack in this turn, as far as we know. So I think this is fine. We also do have the TT here to deal with the Yata later. But yeah, we're just going to pass back to them. They're going to bring out Yata, and that's fine by us. They're going to ring the Thousand Eyes, which makes a lot of sense. So we won't take any damage from that, but they will be able to hit in with the Yata here. Draw luck is for a turn, but I feel fine about this. We've got a monster in hand to hit in to their life points here, and that's a fairly sizable chunk of damage, 2,000. We're going to pass back to them. They will... oh, they pay the extra 500 that they forgot to take there. They're going to bring out Yata. We could potentially TT this just in case they've got something here. And indeed, they do have something. But I feel like this is fine. I do survive this turn, and I can always TT if they bring out the Yata next turn. So I feel okay about this. We could potentially Change of Heart the Spear Soldier, get in for 2,000 damage here. But I don't really see the point to that, so I'm not going to do it right now. And I feel fine, because we do have TT up. So they're going to Pot of Greed, which, again, it's fine. As long as they don't have a way to deal with the TT here, we're fine. But unfortunately, Harpy's Feather Duster will deal with the TT here. So that will indeed be the end of the game. So I do think I misplayed with the Dark Hole there. But I'm not sure it would have mattered too much in the long run. I think maybe I also misplayed with not just firing the Torrential when our opponent summoned the Yata into our Spear Soldier. But I feel like, honestly, that's fine. They needed exactly Harpies there to clear our board and get in for lethal. But, yeah, I think... I don't know. It's tough to say. Let me know down in the comments below what you think of that play. I think it was probably the right play to make because they would have had Snatch Steal in hand to then take whatever we brought out later, so that probably would have been the end of the game for us. But, I mean, I don't know. It's tough to say. So let me know your thoughts down below. But anyways, we're going to go into Game 3. And you'll notice that I had brought in the Exiled Force there. And I did side in some stuff for these Games 2 and 3. I brought out the Reaper and the Parshath. And... I brought out the Reaper and the Serpent, and I believe I brought in the Exiled Force, and I think the Assailant? I did write this down somewhere, but yeah, I think I did bring in the extra Assailant. Thousand Eyes Restrict is a bit of an interesting card. I could have potentially brought in Wanghu's, but I didn't want to do that because I feel like, I'm not that worried about Thousand Eyes Restrict. You have to out it yourself if you're the one playing it and you want to do something with it. And Gravekeepers is fine just waiting a bit as they sort of accumulate what they need to win. So I feel like Thousand Eyes Restrict is not that threatening against this deck. But yeah, the Assailants are good because we did see Hades in them out of Game 2. And Assailant can deal with Hades. So this is a pretty great hand here. We're going to set a guard. We're going to set a Snatch Steal. And then we're just going to pass back to them. I figure next turn we could potentially flip up the guard, summon the Yata, get in for the draw lock. Maybe set TT to protect ourselves a bit. And yeah, I feel like this is pretty good. Unfortunately, they've got Comfy, so that will be able to sort of disrupt our Yata lock play here. They will indeed send the Yata, which I think is probably the right choice. They're going to go for a painful choice here, sending a bunch again. And send Knock, Serpent, Forceful, Mirage, and a Faith. We're just going to give them the Serpent because, again, there's not really much point to not giving them the Serpent here. They're going to get it back eventually. But then they're going to go directly into the Thousand Eyes Restrict play here, which is a bit unfortunate for us. We won't be able to press the offensive here. But, again, I'm not really that threatened by this. They need to have something to do here to actually, get in, and we've got Torrential Tribute, we've got IO, we've got a bunch of stuff here to keep us in the game until then. So they're going to add back that Serpent there. They are going to just pass back to us. We draw an MST here. We're just going to pass back to them. No point playing into Harpies because they might have like Harpies and MST by the time this is all over. So no real point playing into that. We're just going to draw Comfy. We don't fire it now because I want to fire this when, you know, they potentially start discarding things and thus have things in hand that they want to keep. So they're going to discard a Serpent here, passing back to us. Pot of Greed is really good. We're going to pot. And now that I think we could potentially go aggressive soon, I'm going to fire the Comfy just to see what they've got. So we see that they've got Dark Hole, Ring, Change of Heart, Spy, Call of the Haunted, and MST. And that's a bit tricky. I could just take the MST because MST shuts off the IO. But I don't want to telegraph that I do have IO. Then again, setting 3 cards here maybe already telegraphs that I have IO. So maybe I should have sent that instead. But what I actually take here is I take the Change of Heart. And I probably should have taken the MST. But then they potentially just wait until they have another MST to fire their big spells. So yeah, I don't know. I probably should have taken it, but I think I was trying to be a bit too clever here with playing mind games with the opponent. Anyways, we're going to set the Spear Soldier, set the Ring, pass back to them. Ring can be used to pop the Restrict, so I feel pretty good about that. And they're going to grab back that Serpent in the standby phase. They're going to set a bunch, pass back to us, and now we can potentially get a bit aggressive here. We're going to go for Ring on the Thousand Eyes, and that will send our guard to grave, which is nice. We're going to bring out this Witch here. They do have the TT here, which is the draw. We didn't actually know about that. But we will get a search off this Witch. So we're going to grab a... we can't grab Spy, but we realized that like right away, so it's fine. But yeah, we can't grab Spy because it has 2,000 defense. We're going to grab Sangan to potentially search Spy in the future. Our opponent is going to fire a Harpies. We do know about the MST, which is really rough here. They do fire an MST on the Imperial Order, but we've got an MST for their set as well. So we will be able to pop that Ring, which is nice, but we do lose the Snatch Seal and the Torrential here. So I probably should have just, you know, bit the bullet and gotten rid of the MST in the earlier hand, but I didn't do that, and I get a little bit punished for it here. We're gonna go for Duo just to see what they've got in hand, because, you know, if they've got Serpent still in hand, they're going to discard that because there's no reason not to. But it looks like they don't have Serpent in hand because they discard 2 live draws. So that means we don't have to worry about their set being a Spy here. So we're just going to hit into the set. It is a Serpent indeed. If it was a Spy, then we would have Change of Hearted it and gotten a lot of value off that. But unfortunately, our opponent probably played the right move there and set the Serpent instead. They are going to set 1, pass back to us. We draw Red as Spirit, which is really good here. We're just going to go for the Change of Heart in case they did decide to set the Spy here. Unfortunately, it was not. It was just a Witch. And also, you know, Change of Heart forces them to potentially set another monster besides Serpent next turn, which we can then Raigeki for a bit more value there. So I feel like this was ultimately a decent play. And they're going to just bring out... no, we just set the right and pass back to them. Right provides us with a bit of defensive options here, as we do have a guard, we have a Spear Soldier, etc. So if they do go for something like a Yata Lock, which I think they still have, they still have the potential for a Yata Lock here. We can actually, you know, protect ourselves. They're going to go for Reaper, which would be pretty bad for us here, as that would be able to rip whatever card we search out of our hand. We've got a Spy, though, which will be very good next turn, because we've also got this right to bring back the Spear Soldier. Spear Soldier is also great to bring back here, because against Reaper, it's really good. You can just get in for damage every turn. And having this Assailant here as well is really good, too. So we're going to think about this a bit. We could potentially commit another monster to board and hit into the Reaper twice, dealing them like double the damage effectively. The issue is they haven't used up a Raigeki here, and if they draw Raigeki, then what they can do is they can Raigeki our board, Reaper in, rip the last card out of our hand, and we really don't want that to happen. So what we're actually going to do here is just hit in with the Spear Soldier and keep both of our cards in hand. This is maybe a bit too conservative of a play here, but I think it's ultimately the correct play. Our opponent's just going to switch their monster to defense. We draw an MST, and we're just going to hit in with the Spear Soldier again into the Reaper. We're going to set the Spy now, pass back to our opponent, and let's see what they do here. They're going to switch the Witch to attack into the Spear Soldier, so they'll take an additional amount of damage there, which is very nice for us. They're going to search out a monster here, and they're going to grab an Exiled Force. That will be able to pop our set, which is probably the right thing to do here. Oh, they're popping the Spirit Soldier. I mean, that's honestly also probably the right thing to do. As Spirit Soldier's getting in surefire damage, I might not have another Spirit Soldier in deck. Indeed, I don't think I do. I think I've got the double Assailant instead. But Necro Valley will clean this thing up. We're going to fire an MST on the set. It is an Imperial Order. That's fine by us. We're going to fire Necro Valley. We won't get the bonus from this. However, Imperial Order doesn't negate spells from being activated. They just negate the effects. And as long as Necro Valley is on the field, we can still get our Assailant effect off. So we're going to flip this by, bring in another Assailant, summon the Assailant we have in hand, attack into the Reaper. This will target their Spirit Reaper and let's destroy it, and we'll be able to get in for the lethal damage here. So very, very good games here, I thought. I think that this was a really, really good set of matches here. And it really sort of made me like the Gravekeepers deck a lot more. Do I think it's the best deck in the world? No. Like, it definitely has some major flaws. And I think that my build of it also has flaws. I was kind of going all in on the Gravekeepers stick, so I played 3 Royal Tribute. I honestly think you probably don't have to play 3. It probably will brick you more than it will help you. But maybe 1 or 2 copies could be good. And I think you could also probably work with like the monster ratios, putting in some other cards that might be more live or more effective in this deck. So there's a lot of things that you could do with this deck. But I think that this game, and this video really shows that this deck does have some potential to at least be probably like around tier 2 maybe. As it can be really annoying. Like, Spy is a house of a card. It can allow you to get really aggressive. It can allow you to get really controlling, especially when TT is such a big threat in this format. Just being able to Spy, bring out another monster from deck, and not commit to your normal summon with that is really, really good. And of course, Necro Valley, giving these monsters a buff up to like 2,000 can be very, very good as well. Even though, MST does exist and can snipe this, I do think that ultimately this deck does have some potential, and I look forward to seeing people experiment with it more in the future. But what do you think about this deck? Do you think that I'm sort of overhyping it from these games, or do you agree that this deck actually is a really good deck and potentially is even better than I'm giving it credit for? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and also subscribe to the channel. I've got plenty more Yata content on the way, and it should be pretty fun. But until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.